Hey family, it's Tasha MAMABEAR Prepping. You already know what time it is, baby. Get your drink, pull up. Let's talk about it. Welcome to the channel. Welcome back to the channel where we just talk about preparedness. We talk about really what me and my family do so that hopefully put your family on game on what exactly preparedness is about, self-sufficiency is about, and just moving towards that type of lifestyle, that type of living. So today I'm going to be talking about how to prepare food-wise, right? Obviously, food, water, meds is what we preach over here. I talk very, often about food, how to keep food, preserving food, the importance of preserving food, how to preserve food in the way of keeping it on your shelf and making it last longer on your shelf if it's store-bought, and or preserving it to make it even shelf stable as far as even lasting years and years and years, okay? Like taking fresh meat, putting it in a jar, pressure canning it, putting that on your shelf, and that's good for 5, 10, 15 years, okay? So I want to talk about the basics. We've been talking a lot lately about the basics, staples, getting the, cooking with less ingredients, getting the basic things needed for basic old school cooking, one pot meals, easy meals. None of this, hey, I need 15 ingredients to make a meal. No more of that. And especially, inflation, I think, is driving a lot of that for a lot of families as far as pulling back on stuff, not making as fancy of a meal, maybe not getting as expensive cuts of meat, different things like that. And so I want to talk about the things that are needed. I want to talk about preparing for the Great Depression. Preparing for the Greater Depression is what they're talking about. They're talking about that we are going and moving in a direction where economy is going to collapse, we'll lose the dollar, and we go literally from a recession. Now, some folks are saying recession, now it's a deep recession, and then some folks are like, we're going to get to a Great Depression, and then some folks are saying, no, we're going to go into something that we've never ever seen before, and we're going to go into a period of time that is going to be worse than the Great Depression, meaning a Greater Depression. So how do you prepare for that? Well, for us, it doesn't change anything. It's still about food, water, meds. It's still about preparing our family. It's still about preparing and getting those staples, stockpiling those staples, and learning self-sufficiency, meaning get your garden going, growing a garden, indoors, outdoors, in a greenhouse. I don't care how you have to do it, baby, on a vertical garden, in your dining room wall, whatever, on your patio, whatever it is for you, you need to start learning how to garden because there is a learning curve and you need to learn how to do that, how the process works, how to grow a food, harvest the food, procure seeds, be able to do that, keep the cycle going. That's very, very important, especially learning in your environment where you live, what part of the country world you live in, and how to make that and be successful at that. That's helping to be self-sufficient. Some of the best fruits and vegetables come out of your garden than you'll ever get in a store. Even those organic, veggies that you get in the store, the best, right? So it's a matter of fine tuning that. Increasing yields every year and learning how to increase your yields of harvest every year. That stuff's important, okay? So today I have 7 areas that I think are important to cover when you're thinking about, okay, I'm gonna go grocery shopping, I'm gonna start getting basics, and I need to make sure that I get these areas covered so that when we go back to this cowboy way of living, right? Our ancestors' way of living, these one-pot meals, these easier meals. The idea behind this is that not only do you simplify it, but you make it in a way that it will be easy to, if things are on the grid or off the grid, you can still continue to cook food and make these meals. So number one thing is your base staples. That's your what I call your like filling bulk type foods. That's your baseline part of your meal, the biggest part of your meal, right? It's typically your carb. That's your potatoes, that's your pastas, that's your beans, that's your rice, that's your, hey, this is my base. I'm going to make a soup, a stew, a one-pot meal, and typically it's going to be something that I'm going to pour over that base, that filling base, that bulk. So rice, beans, pastas, taters, all of that stuff. Your base filler, okay? Next is your meats. The important thing about meats is that, then let's backtrack to a lot of these staples. A lot of these things that I'm going to mention today actually are forever foods too, meaning that if you get them and you keep them well, you store them the right way, you store them properly, and stuff is not introduced to them, condensation, different things, bad environments for them to be kept in. If you do all the right things, a lot of these stuff will last forever. So white rice, pasta, beans, those things last forever. Taters like processed potato, taters, freeze-dried taters, that type of thing, they're going to last for a very, very, very long time, okay? A lot of freeze-dried stuff anyway in general is going to last 25 years. So keep that in mind. Buy those fillers and buy them in bulk, because you're going to use them, you're going to need them, and it will give you a variety. Okay, the second thing I said was meats. The important thing about meat is, how do you get that on your shelf? How do you get that on your shelf so that when you do not have it in a fresh form, you can still continue to have meat, right? Yes, people are like, well, I'll just go out and hunt. Well, that's not the easiest thing to do. You might not be able to do it. You might not be good at it. You might not have all the things that you need to be successful at it. Okay. And we're talking about a time frame where maybe you cannot get it from the store, whether it's just not there, right? It's not available. You can't get meat, or there's some sort of system in place where you're not able to buy meat anymore. Okay. So this is important. Again, self-sufficiency. This is procuring animals, getting livestock, getting animals, raising animals, okay, for meat, for food, yourself on your piece of land. That's important. Obviously, not everybody can do that. How do you get meat on the counter or on the shelf? Okay, canned meat. I have a ton of canned meat. You stockpile canned meat, or you pressure canned meat, meaning get fresh meat, put it in a jar, pressure can it, right? Season it, whatever you're going to do, pressure can it, and then that can go on the shelf for 5, 10, 15 years, okay? Super important for you to understand that there is the ability to have meat and not have it in the way of, okay, well, I'm just going to get 2 freezers. I'm going to fill those freezers full of meat, which people do, preppers do. But the problem is then they completely do not prepare for grid down, and then they lose all that meat. And they have this fantasy that, oh, well, I'll just process all that meat. I'll just do this. But when you have like 2 full freezers, 3, 4, 5 freezers full of meat, that's a long time. You have to wait for it to defrost out, and then you have to quickly be canning it. I mean, even if you had a couple canners going, that is a lot of meat to get through, to get processed before it starts going bad. Okay. And so, now people like, okay, I have solar generators, I have one, but let you, baby, get in a situation where you cannot use your generator. You didn't stock up on gas. You don't have the gas, or you eventually run out of gas, or it's cloudy out and the solar's not working. And again, you have these freezers full of meat. So, the idea now, that used to be the thing. It's like stockpile. For decades, that was the thing we taught, was it's just stockpile, right? But today, you've got to be careful with that, okay? And so grid down is a real thing, a real threat, a real thing that's going to happen. And so you have to prepare for that. So a lot of preppers, like myself as well, my freezers are not full anymore, right? They're rarely have a lot of stuff. Really what they have is some cheap stuff. They have a little bit of meat to kind of get us through the next couple of weeks worth of food, of meat, of meals. Outside of that, we're not filling them full of meat. We're processing it. I'm putting it in jars. I'm pressure canning. I'm getting it on my shelf that way. Boom, you do that, and then you put it on your shelf, and then you have that meat for a rainy day. And you can do this smartly. You can wait till meat is on sale, get some meat when it's on sale, get a bunch of it, process it, get it on your shelf. Okay. And do not be scared with this. This is actually, it's not the first thing I did. I did beef stew was the first thing I did, but I jumped right in with meats. Okay. Because that was what was important for me. That's what made sense of getting that on the shelf as soon as possible, of what I thought I couldn't get. Other things I thought I could get, or I had them already stockpiled. And so meat was an issue and a concern. Besides, I had some canned stuff, but canning steak is much better than, a can of Spam, let's say. Even though don't sleep on Spam. I love Spam. Okay, next thing is thinking about your fruits and vegetables. Again, how are you growing this stuff yourself? How are you getting seeds to be able to grow this stuff in the future yourself? And then how are you preserving it, right? And preserving it could be from your garden, stuff you grew, or and harvested, and or stuff you bought. You buy stuff, you buy blueberries, you buy strawberries, you dehydrate them yourselves. You get that stuff, you freeze dry it yourself. Yes, can you freeze it, do different things? Yes. Can you preserve some stuff, put some stuff into some jams, different things? Yes. And then of course you can buy those things. Okay. So we do all of the above when it comes to fruits and vegetables. We have seeds for the future. We obviously are growing as much, fruits and trees and plants and fruits and fruit trees and stuff that we can get on the property as possible. And then you're thinking, okay, fresh stuff that you get all the time that you can then process, right? Make into different things, can dehydrated several types of different fruits, vegetables, herbs. And then it becomes, you know, what can you buy that's long-term, right? Already freeze-dried. If you have a freeze dryer, you can freeze dry this stuff yourself. But if you don't, you can buy freeze-dried fruits, vegetables, and they'll last, you know, 20, 25 years. Okay, so you can buy number 10 cans, big cans full of that stuff, so that you're able to, so that you're just able to have more options, right? The goal is to give yourself across the board as many options as possible. And so that's what we're doing. Next thing we have is your dairy staples. You have to figure out, again, how you're going to continue the cycle of having milk, fresh cream, having cheeses, having your butters. That can mean a lot of things for a lot of people. Obviously, if you have land, you have a little farm, you have a little micro farm, something, you have animals, you have an animal that you can milk, boom, okay? You can make all of that stuff if you have an animal that you're milking, milk, cream, cheeses, butters, all that stuff. But there's a lot you can do. If you don't have any of that stuff, baby, you're in an apartment. When I was in an apartment, I was stockpiling all types of dairy. Yes, there's powdered milk, but there's powdered all types of products, powdered cheeses, powdered heavy cream, powdered buttered milk, powdered half and half, all the different types of dairy type milks and creamers and things like that come in a powder form that you can buy right now on the market, okay? On Amazon, on Augustin Farms, wherever, all types of places have these powdered things. Cheeses, you can get freeze-dried shredded cheese, right? You can get, you can wax your own cheese, right? Buy blocks of cheese and wax cheese and preserve it in that way. There's a lot of ways, but for me, butter, you know, that's not really a sanctioned type of canning, but I can the crap out of butter. I love butter. I have to have butter. And so I'm constantly canning it because I want to make sure that I have a good stockpile all the time of butter. Butter for cooking, butter for baking, all of that stuff. So very, very important. That's a very high, if you talk about quality of life things, being able to continue to have ways to make bread and then have some butter that you can pull out and put on that bread. That's, I mean, is a game changer. When you talk about people not being able to get your everyday things that you take for granted, that you're like, okay, I'm not even thinking about butter. But then there's rough times, and imagine you're able to take out and have some butter on something, whatever, put butter on your corn or your mashed potatoes or whatever it is that you made, right? It's a big, big deal. So your dairy staples, make sure that you're figuring out how to get that on your shelf. Your baking things. You're going to take it back. We're going to be taking it back, making breads, making our own biscuits from scratch, making tortillas from scratch, different breads, different fry breads. You've got to have your baking stuff. Yes, this is to make treats and different things like that. For me and preparedness, it is so that I have a staple. I have the staples needed and required to make your basic bread products, right? I want to be able to make tortillas and breads and biscuits and rolls and things like that. I have to be able to do that. That is a quality of life for me. And for me, our plan and what we do even daily is a lot of one-pot meals. And so if you have a one-pot meal, it's very filling. You give even somebody one piece of bread with that, that's huge, okay? So having the things, all the flours, all the sugars, your baking sodas, your baking powders, your yeast, all the stuff that has to do with baking, anything that you plan on baking on a regular basis, think about it in this area and get those staples. Next thing I have is assisting staples. This is the stuff that is like flavoring agents, different things that assist you in cooking that are your basic things. This is salt, pepper, seasoning. This is your oils. This is your sauces, your gravies. This is your, let's see, I made a list. This is your soy sauce, your flavors, your soy sauce, your honey. What else? Oh, this is your tomatoes, your peppers. This is your garlic, your onions. So many recipes that I make start with a little bit of oil in the pan and minced garlic and some cut up onions. A lot of recipes start just like that, okay? And so that is a flavoring agent. That's an everyday thing. That's a holistic medicinal properties that are needed in those foods that you want to have in your daily diet and continue to do that. And so I consider a lot of recipes have, you know, you throw in a can of tomatoes or have some sort of tomatoes in it. A lot of recipes have peppers, whatever. So all those things, even though they're fruit, vegetable, those are things that to me are part of my kitchen as flavoring agents. Those are flavoring ingredients. They're baseline flavoring ingredients, right? It's so easy to grow peppers and tomatoes, onions, garlic. I mean, they make anything and everything better. If you only grew tomatoes and, not tomatoes, if I only grew onions and garlic, and that was the only thing I had kind of to go with, you know, supplement food and cooking, maybe over a fire or whatever, I'm in heaven. I mean, that is amazing. Those are two amazing, amazing foods. Not to mention all the medicinal things and proper ways that you can use that to for healing. Okay, fire ciders, different things like that. Okay, so those are your assisting staples. Let me see if I had any in there that I wanted to mention that I didn't say. I think I mentioned them all. Okay, dessert staples. So you're like, well, you just said baking. So baking, yes, but I'm talking about specifically thinking about desserts, the things that you want to make that will make your family feel good. Some desserts. This could be cookie mixes. This could be muffin mixes. You can get some stuff that's pre-made. Make sure you package it right. This could be getting some chocolate chips. This could be having your cocoa, any kind of extracts, maybe a lemon extract or a maple extract, different things like that. Your cinnamon, making sure you have your basic, like what are the things and the things that you cook and that you bake that you would use all the time, and make sure that you have those things. Okay. Pie fillings, there's all types that you can buy. Again, you can right? You can can pie fillings. You can make stuff yourself and then get it on the shelf that way. You can freeze dry stuff. We freeze dry marshmallows all the time for hot cocoa. So there's a lot of different things that you can do for feeling good, feel good things, snack things, entertainment type things, but in the baking world. You know, maybe cinnamon rolls is your thing. You make cinnamon rolls all the time. Okay, what are all the ingredients that you make to make these cinnamon rolls, and make sure that you're stockpiling all those things, right? Make sure that you have lots of powdered sugar so that you can do that, you know, drizzle on the top, and making sure that you have whatever it is you like in there, your cinnamon, maybe you put butter, whatever, okay? Make sure that you have those items and you stockpile those items, right? What is your go-to thing that you make all the time, right? How are you going to continue to make it? Is it possible for you to make it, right? And go from there, okay? Hopefully these areas helped you. You know, some things to think about is keeping it basic staples, less ingredients, less is more. You don't need a lot. Think one pot meals. Basically, look, you boil whatever that main filler is going to be, and then you have a stew or whatever that you're going to pull over it. Or those items are in the stew and part of the stew or part of the soup, okay? And it's a one pot, boom, cook it, and you're good to go, okay? Practice right now too. If you've already been pressure canning, you should be taking jars out and you should be practicing one pot meals. I'm gonna take these 3 jars out and I'm going to make dinner tonight with this stuff. I'm gonna make this pot of rice, and then over here I'm gonna take this stew that I canned. I'm gonna take 2 quarts out because we have a large family, take them out, and I'm either gonna maybe mix it all together and make some kind of big soup, right? Depends on how much liquid I have, or maybe I'm gonna add some liquid, or maybe I'm just gonna pour stew over the rice, right? Whatever it is. I mean, last night I literally made some curry chicken bites. We made some rice-a-roni, right? Our family loves rice-a-roni. I mean, they love it, okay? And some corn. We often make one pot, like just bowls. We make bowls. We have the filler, we have the meat, we have a vegetable. We stack it all together and we go. I mean, corn's not really a vegetable, you guys, but you get my point though. We do that a lot in our house. We have a carb, we have a meat, we have a vegetable. We usually stack it together. I either make it together in a pot, in a stew, in a goulash, whatever, and then we eat it, or it's something that's very stackable like that. You get a bowl, you just layer it up and eat it, okay? Very, very simple to do. Very easy. You got to start pulling these recipes from the internet, start pulling these Great Depression recipes. There's several books out there you can get. There's a lot of one-pot meals. There's a lot of moms out there with channels that just will go over different one-pot meals, different Greater Depression type meals, very cheap meals, right, with very, very few ingredients. Get that stuff. Get the basics that you know your family eats, and get those things, and get a lot of them, okay? I mean, you still have time, but baby, time is running out. And so it is important that you are thinking about truly the basics and what is needed to get through, to get by with what it is that we're going to have to go through, right? Food insecurity is coming. Famine for certain areas and parts, of the world are going to be hardcore. And so the idea is so that you will continue to move forward with your family. Your quality of life will not be affected too much, at least as much as maybe other people around you in the chaos. And you guys can move forward and hopefully get through whatever it is that we're trying to get through at the time, right? And hoping that it's not a super, super long-term event. But to be honest, we preach over here, you know, anything could last forever. And literally something could happen that changes the course of how we live our lives every single day. And you have to be prepared to be able to adjust fire, to be able to adjust and adapt to living a different type of life. For example, no power whatsoever, no technology, no internet. You know, if we get hit by an MP, that stuff's a wrap. And how do you mentally, spiritually, physically get through that and make it through that? And having your basic preps, your food, water, meds is going to take you light years ahead of people or farther than other people, okay? So you guys be well, you be kind, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Take care. Bye.